Welcome to the Great Catholic Parishes webinar, Learning from Great Entrepreneurs. I'm John Poidevent. I'm the founder and director of Great Catholic Parishes, and I'm excited to have Chad James with me today. Hey, Chad, how's it going?
Hey, John, how are you, man?
I'm good. Where are you coming to us from today?
Today we are parked in Kansas City, outside of Kansas City. As you know, my wife and I travel full time in our RV, so we're here for a week outside of Kansas City en route to the Upper Midwest for the summer.
That sounds amazing. I would love to head as far north as I can over the next few weeks.
Right.
Um, Well, Chad's joining us because Chad is an executive coach and advisor, but Chad is also a Catholic and he's someone that was on staff of a parish for years. And so he's experienced many aspects of what we're talking about today. And I think he's got some great things that we can learn from him. From what he's seen, he's gleaned from the business world and seen where we lack some things in the parish world that we could implement there. So, without too much further ado, I'd love to just hand it over to you, Chad, and hear from you on your thoughts on this. And then about halfway through, we'll stop and we'll take a little break, and then we'll finish.
Sounds great, John. So, guys, first off, one of the things that when John asked me to do this, I said, "Oh gosh, you want to talk to Catholic people about implementing business in their churches? How many people are going to unsubscribe even when you send the email out? Because a lot of the times the pushback that I got over the years was, this isn't a business, Chad. This is a church." And what I found is that that's absolutely true. There's nothing more true than the church is a different place than business. But that doesn't mean that we can't use lessons from business inside of the church. And so what I've tried to do is put together today just 10 lessons that we can take from business to apply inside of the church while still maintaining the faith and while still maintaining the Catholicness of what it is that we do. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll walk you through the slides. John has these that he can send out after the webinar. And if you guys have any questions, he's welcome to share my contact information. So let's just start here. As soon as this loads, there it is. John, you can see that all right?
Looks great.
Great, perfect. So we're calling this learning from great entrepreneurs. In the process of putting this together, I found probably a dozen or 20 quotes from great entrepreneurs that I thought applied to business. And I was going to share those with the names and such. And instead, what I decided to do is go look at actual Catholic churches that were doing cool things. So I have some examples from actual Catholic churches in each of these 10 examples or 10 lessons that we're going to teach. So that's what we did. And here we go. Number one. Number one is customer service. So ensure parishioners feel welcomed, valued, and supported by being responsive to their needs, addressing concerns promptly, and creating a warm, inviting environment. Number one lesson that we can learn from business and church is our parishioners are actually our customers. So I want to give an example of what this looks like. This is St. Paul the Apostle Church. The example here is St. Paul's Parish implements a welcome ministry and a care ministry to greet newcomers, provide information, and support parishioners during times of need. Now, most of us have ministries inside of the church that do, the greeting of newcomers poorly, the providing of information pretty poorly. But we really are good at supporting parishioners in a time of need, and we pride ourselves on that. And so this, to me, this welcome center here with this nice smiling lady volunteer, right inside of the mass, excuse me, inside of the church building, is a great place to start. A lot of people say, well, we welcome people all the time inside our church office. Well, if you think about your church, how many people actually go into your church office? Not that many, right? But how many people go inside of your church? Well, all of your customers. So why wouldn't we want to have the welcome center inside of the church when our customers are going to be there? So even some churches have even taken this so far as to make the work week for staff Sunday through Wednesday or Saturday through Wednesday, so that they can be the entire parish staff can be available during the masses. So this is example number one: customer service. Consider a welcome center. Consider thinking about where your customers are instead of the obligation-based stuff only. Making sure that we understand that we're there to serve and to help and to be available to them. So that's number one. Number two, marketing and outreach. this is something churches and frankly most businesses are historically not that good at, right? So promote programs, events, and ministries through various channels like social media, websites, community outreach to attract new members and to engage the broader community. One of the problems, and I'm sure John has a buzzword for this because he's good with these types of things, but one of the challenges in churches is this concept of preaching to the choir, right? We're always just talking to the people who are in our church and who come regularly, and we think that's all that the church is. And so, but we have to understand that the church is all the people, and using various forms of outreach other than simply using the mass or simply using our very limited church activities like faith formation or even small groups, which we'll talk about in a bit, um, really means we're only talking to the people that are inside the parish. And so social media, websites, and other events allow us to talk to people who are outside of the parish. Our goal, of course, being to touch and reach as many people as we possibly can for the purposes of creating disciples, right? So here's an example, simple example. Our Lady of Grace, it says St. Joseph's Church, but utilizes social media, website updates, community partnerships, and an annual community festival to showcase its offerings. Community festivals are really neat, right? As a marketing opportunity because they bring in people that aren't from our parish. They bring in our parishioners, but they also bring people who aren't from our parish. My parish in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, used to do an Oktoberfest event. They used to attach a pancake breakfast to our annual winter carnival. They used to do a veterans lunch after the 4th of July parade. And these were all free activities or low donation activities to bring people into the church and just to welcome them. These types of things are great ways to outreach to our community and to let people know that we're here and we're not just in some beautiful building, right?
You know, every parish does some sort of festival, carnival, whatever their saint's day is. And so often it's just a moneymaker. They just see it as, hey, here's a day where we get these trucks and these games or whatever, and all these people come and we make a bunch of money. And if our goal was to make money off the pagans in the neighborhood, that would be a great strategy. But our goal is to make disciples, right? So I really challenge you, if you have one of these community festivals or these carnivals or these days, ask yourselves, how can we what can we do creatively to help these people get a better vision for who we are and why we're here in the community, and maybe even connect with them beyond this? Things I've seen parishes do is offer tours of the church during one of these things. People may have driven by 1,000 times and thought, those stained glass windows look pretty neat from the outside. I wonder what that's like inside. But they'd never go to mass, but offer tours of the church. If you have tours of the Stations of the Cross, and maybe people are curious, I'm not Catholic, what are the Stations of the Cross, right? Or even a prayer tent, just a simple tent that says, hey, if there's anything in your life that we can pray for, just drop in. So I think those are creative ways to use these festivals as an outreach. And then when you were talking about marketing, I was thinking of this analogy, Chad. Have you ever been watching TV late at night and like a commercial comes on for pizza or for cheeseburgers, and you weren't even hungry until it came on, and now it's like 10:30 at night and you're trying to figure out how you can get a pizza, right? I think if those commercials were done by a parish, there would be a blank screen with bullet points describing the ingredients of the pizza and where their locations are. And no one would be inspired to get a pizza at 10:30 at night, right? But market in a way that is enticing to people, that it creates FOMO, fear of missing out. Show pictures of other great parish activities and events that people go, oh, that looks fun. I might want to go to that. So just be creative in your marketing in ways that actually connect with people and inspire them. Don't just market with information.
It's interesting that you say that. We're talking about parish websites back in the day, and someone said, well, we talked about it. Maybe, John, it was even in a parish catalyst cohort, and someone said, well, where's the first place that people look? What's the first thing they look for on your parish website? Well, that's the mass times. What's the second thing? The about page. They want to know who they're going to go, who the priest is, what the team looks like. They want to go and connect with human beings. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. To connect with them on a human level
Yep.
after we give them the basics of what they need. So
Yep.
I think that's hilarious, by the way, about the pizza ingredients. Here's our large PowerPoint. So as I'm giving a large PowerPoint. Number 3, strategic planning. Churches tend to not do this, right? Our strategic plans make disciples. But what we want to do in churches, just like we want to do in businesses, is develop strategic plans that guide our operations, that align our vision, mission, and objectives with our resources, and prioritize our long-term sustainability initiatives. Okay. So we want to think a little more long-term, a little more than just we have 52 weeks. We have 365 days of Mass, including on the weekends. We have 2 masses here. This Mass, what about the Christmas Mass? What about the St. Patrick's Day Mass? What about Easter? What are we going to do for Easter with all these people? That's not strategic planning. That's just a set of tasks that we're running throughout the year. Strategic planning says, how would we like to consider the complexion of our church changing over the next 5 to 7 years? Do we want more young fathers in church? Do we want more children to attend church? If so, what do we want that to look like? How do we want that to happen? What's our plan to put that in action? So here's an example from the Diocese of Arlington. This is diocesan level, but what they found was 6 areas of 6 areas of strategy that they wanted to focus on in the next 4 years, not just directly in front of us, and also not 20 years out. So Diocese of Arlington forms a strategic planning committee to conduct analysis, gather input, and set specific 4-year goals related to these items: faith formation, youth ministry, outreach, etc. So there's 6 goals: revitalize evangelization and faith formation with 5 actions. Their next one: cultivate authentic discipleship in Christ, 5 actions, 4 actions, 5 actions. Invigorate Catholic education, 5 actions. Strengthen parish and family life, 5 actions. So they got very specific. 6 times 5, there's 30 actions that they're going to take in the next 4 years to achieve these 6 goals. This is strategic planning, and this is where we want the church to spend more and more time. I don't know if you have anything to say about this, John.
I'd like to hear from you. Where do you see parishes fail? Let's say maybe even they do create a plan. Where does that plan fall apart? Where does it fail to execute?
Well, it usually falls apart out of misuse or out of lack of use, right? It gets put into a 3-ring binder, shelved up there. We bring it out once a year for our annual planning to appease our finance council that we have something. Really, where it falls down is that they try to delegate all of this to volunteers and to committees, and really, to me, each of these: revitalize evangelization, faith formation, create authentic disciples, invigorate Catholic education, and so on. Really, it's most important that the priest be actually bought into this and actually be championing these ideas and believe that they should happen, and that a staff member or staff members are assigned to it, and that there are specific meetings and goals and a rhythm of reports saying how we're doing. Just putting it out there is more like a hope. And years ago, I had a mentor tell me hope is not a business strategy. So what we need to do is actually put together plans, rhythms, meetings to say, how are we doing on making our Catholic schools more affordable and accessible, and developing sustainable funding models? Here's what it used to cost to attend Catholic school. Here's what it attends now. Here's who we used to attract. Here's who we attract now. Here's how we used to panic about funding. Here's how we do it now. So checking in on it, testing in on it. And then secondarily, John, is making it short term enough that you can keep people interested. We're having priests in parishes longer nowadays. But where it used to be 6 years or 3 years or 6 years, something that's implementable by the current priest, if at all possible, or at least being able to be championed by the current priest, I think is also super important.
If they're too far stretching, there's not a sense of urgency to actually act on things. Where if it's a shorter, like a plan that has 6-month increments or something like that. But I also hear you saying continually evaluating it, and accountability is crucial, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We can't just hope for it, look at it once a year and say, well, I think we're doing pretty good at these things. We have to have plans to put it there. So, and we have to actually use it. It's a working document. This one happens to be beautiful. But it doesn't matter if it's beautiful. It matters if it's good. So, all right. Next one, number 4, develop new leaders. if you attended my church in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, 14 years ago, and sat through the mass and listened to the first reading, the second reading, the gospel, uh, and never went back again today, until today, and you went back for church this weekend, um, there before we began this process, there was a good chance that exactly the same person that did the readings back then, 2020 or 2014 or 2012 would be doing the readings now. We don't develop new leaders. We go, oh, thank God we have somebody to do this. We're good. And we don't think about developing the new leaders. So churches need to be creating leader development plans to recruit, train, manage, and grow lay leaders in the church to maximize impact and better allocate the workload. This is the whole concept of the 12 people in the church doing doing the lion's share of the work, the 80-20 rule, 20% doing 80% of the work. And in churches, it's more like the 199 rule, right? Or the 298 rule. So we need to be developing new leaders, and we need to be asking them to take over. And we need to understand that that's a priority, not simply getting Sandy, who did the readings in 2012, to be allowed to continue doing the readings in 2024. It's more important for us to develop those new leaders than it is to, and again, I don't want to be blasphemous about this, but it's more important to develop the new leaders and get those folks in than it is to make sure that Sandy is able to read the readings for 14 years.
Yeah, we got to get some people out of the way to make room for the new people, right? And that maybe those people graduate into a role of mentoring, coaching. We don't need to get rid of them, but as you said, there will be no room for new people to engage and step up and step in if some people don't step aside and
Right.
accompany them. And you may be concerned about hurting the feelings of those people, but you should be just as concerned or more concerned about the future of your parish. Which means if you're not engaging young adults and millennials in leadership, they're going to go somewhere else that they can use their minds and feel like they're productive and contributing.
Absolutely. At Steamboat, we had a priest named Father Tom, and old Brooklyn priest. He was an amazing man. And I remember a parishioner one time asking Father Tom, I want to help in the church. I've done this job, this job, this job, and this job. Where else can I help? And Father Tom looked right at them and said, maybe you should just go to mass now.
Mm.
And I thought that was another really nice transition.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just going to mass, and that's a fantastic way to be a part of the church. And Father Tom was wise beyond his years. Lots of other smart things he said. So, all right. So here's an example of a leadership development roadmap, right? So we find the personal strengths and traits of leaders, or of individuals. We decide that that these people have the skills to lead, that they're able to manage individuals. Then we make them a leader of a team, or we allow them to lead a team, and then we make them a leader of a function and let them lead that, and then we kind of cycle through that. So this leadership development program allows us to have a place for John, who just started coming to mass, to do something very simple, like be the guy that says, hi, welcome to Holy Name Catholic Church. We're really glad you're here today. Can I help you find a seat? And then John can maybe move to the next step, which is maybe it's something as simple as taking the gifts down, and he gets to do that. But then maybe he goes and reads, and then maybe he begins to lead a small group, and then maybe small groups are his thing. So he decides, somebody decides that maybe he should manage a few small groups, or lead the people that have small groups, and then maybe he decides to teach someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So having a leadership development plan helps the parish and helps a business continue to develop people over and over again, and we move them around so that they can develop others. There's a really cool apprenticeship model that I didn't put up here, but it says it's 5 steps. Step number 1 is I do, you watch. Step number 2 is I do, you help. Step number 3 is you do, I help. Step number 4, you do, I watch. Step number 5, possibly the most important, you teach someone else. And I think that's probably the best model of leadership development out there.
Yep, that's great.
All right. Number 5, financial stewardship. All of you have a finance parish, or excuse me, a finance council, and you do things like your normal budget and make sure that costs are being spent appropriately. That absolutely makes sense. Many parishes run in a deficit, and not always. Most parishes don't. But having a strong and sound financial policy, very specifically, that promotes transparency and then encourages responsible stewardship and explores sustainable funding sources like endowments, plan giving, etc. Super duper important. I really believe that financial transparency is the most important one of these. In my work with small businesses, every single small business that has opened their books to their employees, meaning generally let their employees see almost everything, including profit margins, including how much each other was paid. Those businesses did substantially better and had substantially higher rates of motivation and morale than those businesses where everything was a great big secret. So financial transparency to me, counterintuitively, became something that was very, very interesting. So why financial transparency? It supports these data-driven decisions. It builds trust, strengthens engagement because people feel like they're a part of a bigger whole, bigger whole, WHOLE. It reduces our operating costs because people look at it and go, gosh, well, that seems ridiculous that we spent $800 this year on toilet paper. It promotes economic activity because if we need to do something about it, then we can. And then it improves the government. And what that means is just governance. When everyone can see everything, we have to justify it, and we have to make it make sense, which means we sometimes have to have hard conversations with people who don't think we're doing what we're doing, and we have to be able to defend it. So, recommendation to me, transparent financial model would be the most important part of the rest of the financial stewardship piece.
Yeah, and I think as we look at emerging generations, first of all, there's a severe distrust for the institution, rightfully so. They've seen every institution and culture let them down in some way. And also, I would say affluent people want to put their money places where they know it's being used wisely. And so, if you want millennials and emerging generations to invest in your parish, they're not going to do it just because they feel this guilt that they should give to the institution. You've really got to earn that trust. And so, I think this is a great way to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me talk about talent management. So, talent management is nothing more than the act of attracting, developing, and retaining talent by cultivating and empowering your lay leaders and volunteers. So we do this through training, mentorship, and involvement. Like I said before, there's 12 people in your church. Everybody knows it. You're listening to this right now. There's 12 people, maybe 5 people in your church who do everything. That's because you're not developing talent. You're not cultivating and empowering leaders and volunteers through your training, mentorship, and involvement opportunities. I don't want to hear from anybody. I don't call me, don't call John and say, well, no one wants to volunteer. Well, we tried that once and it's just easier to do it myself. Of course, everybody in business says that too, which means that we have to really, 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 really mean it when we say we want to develop folks. Because what's going to happen, we've got someone who's doing a job really well, and they're maybe starting to phase out or age out, and everything is institutionally ingrained in them, and they can do it in their sleep. Well, what is it? It's hard to teach someone how to do that. Well, yeah, duh. We need to do the hard things. We don't go to the gym and just pick up the light weights and expect to get any result. We go to the gym and pick up the hard weights. It is hard to develop talent. We have to stay in it with them. We have to allow them to make mistakes. We have to be tolerant of those mistakes happening. We have to understand that there's going to be a little ups and downs on our way up and to the right, right? So managing, attracting, developing, and retaining top talent through training, mentorship, and involvement is probably, if not the most important one, clearly one of the top 5 or 6 most important things you can do in the parish. So here's an example. St. Catherine's Parish actually developed a talent development program, a talent management strategy to identify potential leaders, offer training, and provide pathways for ministry and leadership roles. So what they did at first was they anticipated their needs, their missing skills, and competencies that the church already had to develop. Then they sourced and recruited and looked at vetted available candidates. Then they selected and or hired them. They did this both on the staff side and the lay volunteership side. Then they began developing them, sending them to trainings, sending them to conferences, showing them the way that it was done, having them do apprenticeship and mentor programs. Then they made sure that they continued engaging them instead of like, okay, they're trained, leaving them alone and hoping that the youth program worked. They actually had regular communication with them. And there was a system set up to do that. And then as it was time to transition, they identified promising leaders to take the position. We'll talk about succession planning, but they identified these promising leaders and looked to give them promotions into these roles. The most vibrant businesses and churches are constantly changing who's doing things inside of the organization. You want to go to a vibrant church anywhere, one of the measurements for me is you go to the church, call it 4 years in a row, you see 4 different groups of people doing different things inside of the church, and the people you used to see doing the church are either sitting in the pew or doing something else. That's vibrant to me.
Yeah, this is where we don't invest a lot is training and developing, right? It seems almost like in the church it's seen as almost frivolous or a luxury that we can't afford. And I guess some business people see it that way too, right?
Absolutely they do. People sometimes look at this as a budget line item that as long as I can keep good people is unneeded. And the fact of the matter is anybody could leave at any time, or anyone could simply get bored or disinterested at any time. Mm-hmm. So we want to always be developing.
Yeah, I think it was Richard Branson said, invest in your people so they could leave at any time if they want to, but treat them in such a way that they don't want to.
They'll stay forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. Well, let me, you said a commercial, but I'd like to consider what I'm about to do as being an entrepreneur in ministry who is marketing and practicing outreach, just as Perfect. You have suggested. Let me share something here, and I'm going to slide over to my slides if I could. I want to take just a minute to share with everybody about something that I just did recently that was pretty exciting. We did our first Great Catholic Parishes discipleship cohort. And this is something that we did as a part of Parish Catalyst, my former organization. And I'm carrying it on through cohorts of 6 to 10 parish leaders, pastors and their teams that come together. And this cohort is together for 18 months, and we meet 4 times during that 18-month period. Each time we come together, we learn together, we evaluate our parishes, we evaluate how we're doing, what outcomes we're getting. We think about where we're stuck, where we could improve, what opportunities we have, and then the time ends with discerning as a team, what are some action steps that we could take away from this. So this one we did here at Mount Alvernia Retreat Center, which is up in New York, up in Wappingers Falls, I believe is the way that it's said. And we had a really neat facility there, but here the teams gathered around, hearing from each other, learning from each other, sharing best practices. One parish might say, man, we've really been struggling with Alpha. And another parish would say, well, we were struggling, but we actually last year found a way to do it that it really engaged people. And so they learn from each other. They hear from experts that we bring in to speak. And they work as a team. They collaborate. And as Chad suggested, we create these 6-month plans that have goals, deliverables, actions, owners, and due dates, and those are the things that move a plan forward. So I would just say that if you're with a diocese, these were all parishes from the Bronx in that area, would love to do something like this with 6 to 10 parishes in your diocese. We were grateful to have the bishop of the Bronx to be there as a pastor in our group, but it was a fantastic time. We're going to meet 3 more times over the next 18 months. And each time we're going to review those plans. We're going to learn some new things and adjust and adapt and pivot and make some new plans going forward. So I'd love to talk to you if you're a pastor that would like to bring together 6 to 10 pastors that you know, or if you're at a diocese and you'd like to do this in your area, would love to talk to you about that. Chad was a part of one of our Parish Catalyst cohorts. Chad, could you just give me a little testimonial real quick on, as a parish team member, how this worked for you and how you see it kind of in light of the things that you're talking about today?
Yeah, this program, guys, was amazing for us. I attended, I think, in 2019 and then into 2020 during COVID. So we were like the first cohort, or maybe the only cohort, that had a couple of in-person sessions, and then we did a few virtual sessions. And this was fantastic for our parish. It kept us talking about things that mattered, and it kept us from keeping our head down here, business of the parish all day long. What's happening this weekend? What are we doing for Christmas, Easter? And it helped us look up toward our vision, and decide what that vision is. The thing that I'll say is that I thought it was transformative in that it wasn't simply the amazing exercises and the gathering together of the different churches. I think we had 6 or 7 or 8 different churches in my cohort. It was the idea that we had to challenge some of the ways that we thought things were done. And we had to do it real time, which I thought was super cool. I mean, we had to sit together, the 5 of us from our parish, 4 or 5 of us from our parish, and talk about the things that weren't working right in front of one another. And then we had to go share that. I thought that was fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, big fan, still friends with a lot of the folks from our cohort. So I think it's a pretty fantastic program. And I'm thrilled that John's out here doing it on his own, because I like entrepreneurs. So great program though, John.
Well, thank you, Chad. Go ahead and bring us home. You got 4 more here. Let's hear about them.
Continuous improvement. So I think you can see that now. So embracing a culture of continuous improvement by regularly evaluating processes, soliciting feedback, and implementing changes to enhance efficiency and effectiveness. That sounds all very corporate mumbo jumbo jargony, but really what this means is, instead of presuming that it's all okay and simply moving forward, we're presuming that it's all not okay and making a choice to improve the areas, to improve any areas under the banner of constant improvement and continuous improvement. So this is a very simple continuous improvement model. The example: St. Patrick's Parish implements a continuous improvement team to review operations, gather feedback, and streamline processes. For example, scheduling and communication. But here's the model that I really like. So first, plan, do, check, act. So first, we identify problems. We identify any problems, and then we test possible solutions to those problems. Then we verify if our solutions worked or not, and then we implement the best solution. And then we immediately go back to identifying more problems. This is not a negative or a contrarian way to improve. This is what great football teams do. This is what great businesses do. This is what great churches do. We never presume that what we're doing is good enough. We presume that it's where we are now, and we keep pushing it forward. Even if it's incrementally, it doesn't always have to be exponential, but we keep pushing it forward. So continuous improvement, number 7 for me, on the things that we can learn from great entrepreneurs and businesses.
That's great.
Number 8. Oh, sorry, John. Did you have another?
No, just that good to great mindset that we always promote in our cohorts of, it's not a negative thing to consistently evaluate, how are we doing? Is it still working? And if not, what could we do to improve it, or maybe try something altogether? It's in the data-driven aspect, I think that you're going to share here is something we rarely do that I think is really important.
So one of the things, when I put this together, I went from like easy funnel to maybe a little bit harder, or stuff that we wouldn't think about. Data-driven decision making is not something that churches really talk much about. Okay, and what this is relying on data and analytics to inform our decision making processes and measure the effectiveness of strategies by tracking metrics like attendance, participation, and engagement. Now, the moment I say tracking numbers in a church, people tend to start freaking out. Well, it's not all about the numbers. and it's about the amount of people who are making the conversion, or whatever the other negative things that they want to say. And what I'll say is, no, it's not all about the numbers, and it is about creating disciples, and it is about serving our communities. And if you add metrics to all of that, you will do better. Peter Drucker's famous for saying, what gets measured gets done. And so what we're looking at here is deciding what metrics matter, choosing to measure those over time at the same rhythm and with the same reports over time to know how we're doing. Are we gaining people in a children's program? What's a sign that our children's program is improving? We're gaining children. We can't measure whether or not they're all learning. We can't measure whether or not they're all converting or being fed. We can gain if they're there or not. And if we're doing all the other things like putting the right people in leadership positions and having plans to continuously improve, then we know, when we have higher numbers coming to the children's program or coming to church, we know that we're able to affect more people. So data-driven decision making, one of these things a church can do that it might not want to do. Example, John the Baptist parish implements a data collection system to analyze trends, assess the impact of their initiatives, and make data-driven resource allocation decisions. This is a great church. I can't remember. I think it's in Colorado when I found this one, but they actually every time they implement any new initiative, they create a set of metrics to go with it that they just have decided that will become the measurement for that initiative. It doesn't have to be the right measurements even. This is kind of part of the fun of it. They've just said, hey, if this, and this happen, then we'll consider this to be a success. Because what they believe in is measuring data. So 5 essential steps. Number 1, determine the question. Number 2, strategize and identify the goals. Number 3, decide where the data is going to come from, what we're going to target. Number 4, collect and analyze that. And number 5, make decisions regarding findings. Okay. So for example, in a confirmation program, we go through a confirmation program. Be interesting to see how many kids started, how many kids finished, and were actually confirmed. That's an interesting metric. It'd be interesting to see how many kids attended all of the sessions versus just the sessions that were required for them to be confirmed, to determine if it was, did we need all of the sessions? Did we not need all of the sessions? So the idea here being that the more data that we can look at, the more metrics that matter that we look at, the better a job we can do of changing just what it is that we do inside the parish.
Chad, something I really like for this is surveying. Surveying people anytime they complete a sacramental prep, a class, a program, even an event. And the best kind of surveying is done in their seat at the event, if you can do it. But, a great question is, how likely would you be to recommend this to someone else? That tells you that they didn't just attend, but they actually enjoyed it. That's a big, big factor. So yeah, I recommend surveying, in-pew survey, in-seat surveys as much as you can to collect that data, because otherwise it's just anecdotal, right? Oh, I think everyone enjoyed it. I think people were. What's that?
I think it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all subjective and nobody wants to rock the boat. So we just say, yeah, it was good. But that's not real data. So I think this could be huge to move things forward.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Number 9, branding and identity. Okay, churches. There's a difference in tradition and laziness. And what I mean by that is, one of the things that we want to be doing in our churches is cultivating a strong brand identity that resonates with our community, that differentiates us and is consistently reflected, okay, through our visuals, our messaging, our spirit. There is research out there that suggests that the average company, and I would insert the word church here, should update their brand about once every 3 years. If you just gasped and threw up a little bit, you're the right target for this comment. The idea being that we want to stay relevant. Okay. And again, this doesn't mean we have to start from the beginning and and recraft everything. But we want to make sure that we're staying as relevant as we possibly can. For instance, everyone knows the Instagram logo, or most people know the Instagram logo. There was an entire documentary done on just the Instagram logo. It's called Abstract: The Art of Design. It's a whole episode on just the guy that designed the Instagram logo. It is essentially the same. You could identify it in any one of its versions from when it started, I think almost 20 years ago now to now. And it's had 47 versions. They update it slightly, they change it a little bit, they make it slightly more relevant. That's what I'm talking about for churches with branding and identity. This means your website needs an update. If you're wondering right now if your website needs an update, it needs an update. If you're wondering right now if your logo needs an update, it needs an update. Let me give you an example. First Presbyterian Church. I couldn't find a Catholic church that did this. Okay. A before and after picture, which is telling in and of itself about us as Catholics, right? But they undertook a rebranding initiative with a new logo, consistent visuals, and fonts. One of the challenges with Catholic churches, with churches altogether, is we've forgotten that the church is not the building. Yet we put the church on our logo. I can't tell you, if you were to just look up church, Google right now while you're watching this webinar on the side, Google church logos. I would bet that 40 to 50% of those minimum have a building on them. The church is
or
not
not
the
to get
building.
not to go back into websites, but you go to the website, the first picture you see is a big outside of a building. There's no
Building.
people in the image at all. Like, we love our buildings.
Love them. And so what First Presbyterian Church did was took their church out of it, crafted a logo that has a lot of meaning. I should have put the branding guide that they put together for this in here, but that little square with the diamonds and there's all kinds of meaning that they've crafted in that. And now it says First Presbyterian Church of Oklahoma City. It's kind of a funny thing just to add the name of the church, the actual name of the location. But my suggestion might be perhaps you have a tagline capturing the parish's spirit, you know, making disciples in Christ, or something along those lines. But we need to update these things, and we need to not be afraid to do it. Okay. Here's the other thing. My wife and I belong to an RV community. It's called Switch It Up. And Switch It Up is an online RV community that has about 500 members, United States, worldwide, really. And every 3 or 4 times a year, they host these things called huddles. At every huddle, there's merchandise that we can buy: t-shirts, hats, jackets, umbrellas, koozies, whatever it is that they have. And every time we go to a huddle, that gear is different than the last huddle. It's a slightly different color. It's a slightly different logo. It's a slightly different something. And by the time we've gone to maybe our third huddle of that year or something like that, the old stuff that we bought 3 huddles ago, no longer available, only the new stuff. Here's why that's important. Okay. That's important because here in our 400 square foot RV that we live in, I probably have 9 or 10 different Switch It Up t-shirts or sweatshirts or hats. That's 9 or 10 different opportunities for me to promote the brand instead of just the one t-shirt that I thought was super cool, that everybody thought was super cool. And we've got our t-shirt for sale again. How often am I going to wear that 1 hour t-shirt? Okay. So if I have 9 or 10 of these things, my wife easily has 14 or 15. To the point where when we're walking around, when we're working out at the gym, we're wearing something that says Switch It Up. When we're at a Sporting Kansas City soccer game the other night, my wife and I'm wearing a Switch It Up hat. So it gives you this opportunity. Refreshing the image and refreshing the brand gives you an opportunity to put more stuff out there to let people know who you are.
It's great.
All right. Number 10. Final one here, and this is the one that it relates to talent management. It relates to constant improvement, but we need to prioritize succession planning. We need to prioritize ensuring these smooth leadership transitions by identifying, developing, and providing structured transitions for future leaders. This is not just with our lay leadership, but this is with our parish staff as well. We want to make sure that we understand who the next person is that's going to take this role, and we're always developing that next person. Here's the final example. St. Michael the Archangel Parish develops a comprehensive succession planning program with leadership training, mentorship, and structured role transitions. Here's the succession planning model. We identify the critical roles. We can construct success profiles, which are nothing more than job descriptions and role descriptions saying this is what this takes to be successful. We assess who's available to do it. We create development plans for them to do it. We begin the process of developing the successors. Once the successors are ready, we put them in the on deck circle, right? They don't have to take over yet. We put them in the on deck circle. They may sit in that on deck circle for a month. They may sit on that on deck circle for a year or 2 or 3. That's okay, but we're trying to get people into the on deck circle so that we can review and adapt the role, and put the person into the new role, and then do it all over again. This is why boards and commissions always have a president pro tem. I think it's important to do this as churches, and I think that we don't do that. There is an element to this that we can do for priests as well by crafting systems and processes and policies that the new priest can decide to implement or not. But here's the thing. Priests are like everybody else. Not every priest wants to come into a new parish and change everything. A lot of priests would love to come into a parish that's working well and not have to reinvent the wheel. And so parish priests can develop their successors without even knowing who they are by creating these other things. So
I think that last one, it's important to say, listen, we can't guarantee that someone won't come in and change everything. You know that if you're watching this, if you've worked in a parish, you know that. And there are people that are going to come in and change everything regardless of how successful it's going. That's true. But there, I think, are more people that are smart enough to know that if things are going well, I'm more likely to embrace what's already happening if you have a clear goal, a clear mission, a clear structure. So, yeah, and I would also say on that last one, succession planning for leaders of ministries. There do need to be term limits, as we mentioned earlier, on some things, and not as a negative thing, as like hey, you get to mentor and raise new people up and let them have a great experience of leading and having a positive impact and sense of purpose. So.
Yeah, it would be interesting to me in all leaders, in all positions in the church, to have a year where you learn from a mentor, a year where the mentor has moved on and you're working beside the mentor, and then a year where you are now mentoring the next person to come up. Just almost a 3-year term across the board where, first you're learning, then you're doing, then you're teaching. I'd love to see that in every business as well as every parish. So.
Well, Chad, thank you so much. I know we kind of blasted through all that stuff. We've only got an hour here, but Chad's information will be in the email connected to this. Reach out to him. I know he'd love to help any way that he can. Thank you so much for your time today, Chad. Look forward to connecting again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. God bless.